This week I'm joined again by Homie and the Dude. Hi, guys.
Hello.
How you doing, Robo
What's
Dad?
up?
So, last time we spoke, a year, 18 months ago, I think, and you were on the brink of releasing Sky Zephyrs. I think Wandering Tavern was like a pipe dream. So, you're about to announce, or you have announced Scorched Basin for next year.
Yeah.
I just wondered what the difference was between your headspace last year and to now. Confident more, or?
That's
a great question. Before we answer that, can we just show you the fruits of our labor?
Oh yeah, of course. I have a Zephyrs book.
Nice one.
Yeah, they look beautiful.
Yeah,
thanks,
thank you.
Man. Super appreciate that. That's a great question. I think, yeah, dude, it was validating more than I think it was confident. Like, I think we know the path now. It's like the first time we were, in a room trying to find a light switch, and, the second time, we had turned on a couple of lights and could begin finding a path, and now this third one, it feels like we kind of know the path, and now it's about how we can take what we do to the next level, whether it's, the content within the book, our marketing, the way we, are interacting with collaborators / creative partners, it's just been it's been a little bit of a different path, and if that we feel like we understand where we're going now. So I wouldn't say, there's no confidence in in the most humble way possible. There's no confidence in what we do in terms of we're just here trying to make what we believe is good and what we kind of love making and things like that. And I think, it comes down to, we just believe in ourselves. And I think, whether that's confidence, maybe that's, I guess that's maybe confidence. I don't know. We just believe in what we're doing, I think would be how I'd say it. I think our team is really involved, happy, everyone's just really in a good headspace. And I think, that's something that when you're working on collaborating on the Scorched Basin, which is going to be, bigger than our last two put together realistically, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So the team are just, invested. I think we're invested. That's maybe not confident. We're invested this time.
Yeah.
I think
You've
that's
been
what
validated, haven't you? It's like, can we do this thing? Yes, we've done it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That question has been answered, hasn't it? So have you learned what works and what doesn't work in the whole kickstarting space?
Yeah. There's different elements to. First you have to have a product that, if you are looking to market it or to promote it, that people actually want to stand behind. So there's an element of really having a product that we think is going to resonate with the market. And so, we juggle that with that as well. Sometimes we think, well, we could do cute dragons, and I know that would widen our market up a lot more. But we kind of want to thread the needle of stuff that we're passionate about, that we also think that the market would really be excited about. So that's one level of it. And then with regard to the Kickstarter, you have to have a really nice page, a clean page. You have to, and we're still working on that. We want to make sure the page is simple, yet informative and engaging. So that includes having a really good hero video, which we feel like from the first Kickstarter to the second Kickstarter, we learned from. We made it a bit shorter, a little bit more interactive, added music to it, some, that type of thing. And then you want to have the message within the Kickstarter page to be fairly, simple to read, but also just engaging. You want to have your rewards really simple, so that people can go through all of the rewards and not have to, and we're still learning on that as well. I think the next time we do this, we'll take some elements from that.
I think one of the bigger, Tom mentioned, if you can find a product that works with your kind of audience and kind of, the selecting a product that will be more marketable, is one part of the challenge. But then realistically, we've seen it, you can see it on Kickstarter. There's some products that are not incredible or aren't, connected to, we wrote the Wandering Tavern, connected it to Studio Ghibli, and that was a big selling point, for us. The people haven't done that. And with good marketing, though, it doesn't matter really what the product is in terms of like how it applies. But if you have good marketing, like it can really get you anywhere. It's think about products like Manscaped or whatever. You see those ads all over YouTube and all over this place, and they've got great marketing. And I can name 3 or 4 men in my life that use Manscaped products, because they've seen adverts, and it's like whether their razor is any better than any other like bog standard trimmer you can buy from a place, I would doubt it. But the point, I guess, is with good marketing, they've allowed themselves to hold an area of the market space that they might not have had without that good marketing. That's something we learned.
What it reminds me of? There's a term in sports where hard work often beats talent. But the real secret sauce, where you get the exceptional, the Lionel Messi's and the Michael Jordans and that type, is when you can harness talent and hard work together. So the equivalent to that in Kickstarters is a very average product with good marketing is probably going to do pretty well. A really good product with poor marketing is not going to, you cannot just depend on your product getting out there to the masses. The key, though, is good product, good marketing. And now like you can really start, and we're still like on the bottom end of the totem pole with regard to what we've seen with other Kickstarters, but we feel like we can see the pathway. We can see how other people have done it, and we're starting to pull those things together even more than the first two. And so, we're super excited.
And I think irregardless of what happens, Kickstarters are a gamble every time. And, you don't know what the want for that type of product is going to be and all that kind of stuff. So, we're just going to keep shooting. Like it's one of those things as well. Like Homie and the Dude doesn't stop. We don't quit, so it will literally be like, if one thing doesn't work, cool, we'll be on to the next project and we'll keep it going. It's not something where we give up lightly, or that, for example, say the Scorched Basin doesn't do as good as the Wandering Tavern, then, that doesn't spell the end for us. I mean, financially, it doesn't help us, but, it doesn't spell the end for Homie and the Dude. We will definitely, keep plugging along and doing what we do, because we love this. We love making content that we would want to see in the space. That's what we like doing.
Can I turn it around to you, Chris?
Yeah.
So I know that, and you probably are aware that a lot of people in your space will, the journey is, look to monetize in some way or another. So there's a couple different roadways, right? One is I do shorts, and I make a certain amount of conversions and all that, but I want to get to long form, where there's a little bit more of a conversion in the YouTube algorithm for long form. But then the next step is I want to grow my audience and then channel that audience into a product that I can then kind of get them to go over to. So, there's different YouTube creators that have made Kickstarters and that type of thing. Do you think about that at all?
Yes, I do, to be fair. And my son talks me out of it. He's 16, and he's like, my generation thinks that anyone does a YouTube course or anything like that, and trying to sell a product is a loser, basically. And we all switch off. As a generation, we switch off. I don't know where that mentality comes from. Probably because they haven't grown up and seen. You see life different when you grow up, don't you?
Yeah.
Everyone's a sellout when you're 16.
I see. Yeah.
That's so true.
So what?
Gosh, that's so true.
So my question would be: so what would a 16-year-old or that generation see as the pathway? Is it just you introduce it and it catches fire, and you don't have to do any? Like how does it work? Because I am curious about that.
Yeah, I would say that he thinks I'm doing this and I don't know what I'm talking about. He sees behind the facade of, he's doing a YouTube channel, so he must know everything there is to know about YouTube. As you know, you made Kickstarters. That doesn't mean that you know everything there is to know about it. We share a path with what we're doing that everyone is seeing our growth from fumbling around to getting a little bit better, and judging it. But yeah, what does a 16-year-old want? I don't know. They just think they watch YouTubers of their age and think they get the other side. Oh, they must be brilliant. It's like, well, no, because if you ask his son or family, they'll think he's a charlatan. You know?
It's super true, and I think it's a really, really good point. I think, that's the other thing is it depends what you're marketing to, and I think sadly, the younger generation currently, everyone who I would say, is 20 and under has heard of TTRPGs from Stranger Things. That's it. And so, their awareness of our industry currently is like smaller. And I think though D&D is its biggest it's ever been, it boomed with people who were in their 20s through to 60s or whatever during COVID predominantly. It's rare that you see, young kids, at to be fair, we've recently met a younger lad who we met at a convention we played a TTRPG game with, and they were one of the youngest people I've ever seen, in a TTRPG space ever, unanimously ever. And it's one of those things of I think knowing the audience that you're marketing for, and almost a big part of what we're doing now is, we're taking the data that we're getting from each Kickstarter and every small thing that we do, and we're analyzing that data. Tom and I probably have, 5 to 6 conversations a week, about new information that we're getting from, we tried this. This is what the results were of that. We're not going to try that again. Or yes, that was a good thing. We're going to try that a second time and get secondary evidence to prove that it works, and so we're constantly playing that game, dude, of the failure, not failure game. And so I completely agree with you. You look at people and everyone's looking at people like Mr. Beast, for example, or YouTubers that are colossal and going, wow, they're so refined and easy. Another example of this is people during the Olympics were saying the skateboarding looked easy. And it's how do you not understand the process that person went on? And it's almost cool. I have friends say the same thing to me, Chris, all the time. I have 2 very close friends, and they're like, man, you should make shorts, and you would blow up and then you'd have a massive audience. And I'm like, first of all, we've done that. It didn't work. Second of all, we aren't that's not what we want to do. That's not the space we want to go into. That's not the route that we want to take in this. And it's because that's what is perceived from the outside to everyone, it's very different than what's actually happening behind the scenes for all of us creators. Every single one of us is not only experiencing their unique journey, it's also then this journey of growth that you have to learn. You have to then get higher budget, realize that, I need to take an editing course, or, I could do this and up. And by learning at every step, a great example is look at Corridor Digital, a fantastic channel that's been around since the inception of YouTube, basically. And these guys have been making videos for years and years and years. Now they have some of the most incredible guests on their shows to come and help them review VFX and things like that. They're working with huge industry tycoons basically in the filmmaking industry now, because they've just put it in for the last 20 years. And it's all there on YouTube. You can see every freaking video. It's all there, all the way back to when their VFX were those awful muzzle flashes and terrible 2D graphic explosions, it's a journey.
What I appreciate about you, Chris, is, and you've mentioned it a couple times, and I think it's super important. You've just said in passing when I've said, how are you doing? What's going on? And you said, I've just passed this threshold with subs and I'm having a ball. What else could be funner? That type of, and that's the mentality. As long as you keep the joy in it, because it is hard. Let's just put it out there to anyone, including the younger generation. There are no flukes in this. It doesn't happen. Even
if you go viral, try and maintain that.
Yeah.
Try and maintain that. It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. It's crazy how hard it is.
But you're a good example of really, finding and hanging on to the fun in this, the joy in this. And I hope that continues.
Yeah, we appreciate that about you massively.
Well, it's got stronger for me because after 2,000 subs, I'm like, who cares now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not looking for another number.
Are you over 2,000?
Yeah.
Damn,
just got 2,000. Thought, well, I've done 1,000 with a struggle.
I remember. I remember that.
I was like, if I ever get to 2, that's God. I've done it twice. I'm out.
Yeah. You're winning. Awesome.
Yeah. So, Anyway, back to you guys. Did you get feedback along the way, and did you take it on board? Has it shaped your products?
That's a great question. That's a fantastic question. So, we have sent out jot form surveys at the end of both of our Kickstarters, that are detailed ones, essentially being like, okay, here's the chapter. What did you like about this chapter? What didn't you like about this chapter? What would you have wanted from this chapter? Rank it on 1 to 10. How much did you like this chapter? Or like how satisfied you were, or whatever, that kind of stuff. And so we have put out those feedback forms both times and received a percentage of feedback from those who wanted to spend the time doing so. And yeah, dude, we've taken it massively on board. Like with the Wandering Tavern, we shot a shot in the dark with the amount of lore that's in this book. There's Sky Zephyrs is a mechanics beast. It's all mechanics. So people know us as mechanics people. Then we come to the Wandering Tavern, and it's 20 to 30 pages, or like 40 pages, I think, of lore about locations, and then 30 NPCs with lore about all of that, and all this stuff. And so we then asked afterwards, like, how do people feel about the lore? And unanimously, all of our community was like, we want more of it. Like please give us more. Yeah. And so it's little things like that we're now like implementing. And so like, with the Scorched Basin, it's one book, but it's actually more like 5 or 6 books combined together, in terms of the amount of lore that will be included for people to dive into if they so please, and that's it.
You guys have done, so Bodhi and his co-writer, Emily, they have a bit of a novelistic approach to a TTRPG.
Yeah, very much so.
And I think it's really cool that
I come from a film approach. She comes from novels, and together that's how we then get continuity, and like all the layers of what we do ends up coming from her coming at it from like world building and like gorgeous like description and fantasy stuff, and then me talking about the continuity, all the like gritty details of how to link it all together and bring everything, make it all make sense and all that kind of stuff.
It almost feels, and we've never talked about this, so I'll chuck this at you.
Go for it. Yeah.
It almost feels like inadvertently, one of the goals has been to write a book that is on its own readable enough that someone could choose to play the TTRPG, but also could just enjoy reading the book. Totally. If that makes sense. And we've never really
subconsciously, I think. I think we've both kind of pointed that, especially with like our notes throughout the Wandering Tavern and the way we're doing notes in the Scorched Basin. There's like hidden stories laced. There's like hidden stories laced throughout all the books, and we put loads of Easter eggs in them, and we will continue to put loads of Easter eggs throughout the books, because for those people who really do care, and like we shout out to, for example, Justine in our Discord. Shout out Justine, who has cooked every bloody recipe in the book, who is playing the module, playing a campaign with her friends at the moment, and like has really taken a deep dive into it. Same as Gavin and like a couple of other people that have really gone into it, and like. We love that, and those are the people that are finding little weird things that we've hidden throughout the book, and they'll be in our Discord server like, yo, like what? Like what's this? And we're like, oh yeah, that was hidden deep in there for people who wanted to find it, So we love that kind of stuff.
Do you think you can merge all your projects? We're going to get crossovers, or do you already think of them crossing over?
So that's a fantastic question, and it's
we might have to edit this out.
No, that's okay. No, totally joking. So the answer is this: in the Wandering Tavern, all of our books are written by people. So the Sky Zephyrs is written by Galmer and Satva, two traveling gentlemen who wanted to make some money from writing a book about the mechanics of sky vehicles, basically. Then the Wandering Tavern is written by a journalist called Amelia, who is part of a group known as the Traveling Scribes, basically, who are a fictitious journalistic group. And the Scorched Basin, I'll give you a little teaser, is written is written in 2 parts by 2 different characters, actually. So you will have notes from 2 different characters running throughout the book as we have it currently. Subject to change, but as we have it currently, there will be notes from 2 different characters throughout the book that flow of the same family in 2 generations, basically. And, yes, the answer is as well, you know, in the beginning of The Wandering Tavern, we had a letter from Amelia to the reader. In The Scorched Basin, we have a letter from one of the characters who's writing the book to Amelia. So we are linking all this kind of together, and eventually, you know, we're hoping one day to be able to,
almost,
you know,
look for a sleeve of about 4 books that you could actually get a sleeve, and you could have them all in there, and there would be a connection between all of them. That's kind of the
exactly. At some point, you know, there's definitely a debate going on at the moment of whether we release a world setting that combines all of our books together with then other lands that we've not talked about or other places, or whether we go down the route of creating our own system. You know, and so we're kind of unsure which way we're going to end up going with all of that. But yes, we're linking a lot of things together. There's things like the power gems link a lot in our books. There's different elements of like Zephyrs are powered by power gems. In the Wandering Tavern, there's a big chunk of stuff about them. And then in the Scorched Basin, they're a prominent thing again. So there's little things that, you know, if you wanted to bring this all into one world, you could do, basically.
I presume the gems on the released image was the power gems in the desert.
Yes, that is a correct assumption.
For a Mos Eisley kind of base, you know, where everyone can meet and you can land your Zephyr in the desert. That's what I'm imagining. You know,
hell yeah.
You doing a big spaceport. I know that Wandering Tavern, you could argue, is obviously a flying spaceport, but are you wanting to like branch out entirely? Are you like, I've itched that, I want to do, you know, you're doing more world setting now? What's your approach, your mental approach to the next project?
Dude, our approach is innovation. That's been the one word. That's been our one word when we're creating is innovation. So this next book is going to have layout unlike anything you've ever seen from Homie and the Dude before. The book is going to look fantastic. It's going to be insane how wild and crazy some of the pages in this book are going to look. We are going to have art just filling this thing all the way through. It's going to be insane.
I think it's a double the art budget, isn't it, for the Wandering Tavern?
Yeah, double the art budget. We're really going big with the art this time. On top of that, just to give you like some examples of things, we are including 5 different factions in the book that you'll have in chapter chunks, basically. And within them, there will be player options so that if you want to become part of that faction, you can gain player options. Within that, there's a whole new magic system that we're releasing with the book as well that can be tacked on to any TTRPG class, character, anything you want. Like, it can be tacked on basically to anything that you have in any other system. We're working just on pushing this to the next level. So,
there's some elements that are too early to talk about right now that we think haven't been introduced in any TTRPG setting, full stop. So some things that we're going to try that have to do with, let's just call it a little bit more of a multi-sensory experience when you're kind of reading and then playing games of it.
And I would say, like, you know, it's going to lengths of, you know, and you asked about world building and things like that. You know, this is so the Wandering Tavern is, you know, a city-sized place. This is an entire meteor site basin, basically. This is a giant basin that I believe, when we did the math, spans, I think, 1,500 miles from one side to the other, in the end. So it's a colossal bit of land that you can explore with terrains, you know, unique cultures, items, vehicles, you know, creatures, all this kind of stuff. We've gone as far as to create languages for some of these cultures. Like, we're really going deep. And these are languages that can be written, in some cases spoken, in some cases signed. You know, we're going so deep with this, Chris, that like, it's the biggest thing that we've ever tried to do. And that's why we're giving ourselves the amount of time that we have given, why we're taking such a long hiatus from launching anything big, is because this next one is going to be, you know, probably one of the most unique settings that I think, you know, we could possibly create at this point in our career.
Wow. I was wondering if you work on an idea, you get excited for it, and then someone's like, you know what? you're just asking too much. We've got to cut something. And you're thinking, but I love all these
Mm.
items. Do you have to edit things out that you love?
Oh,
Do you want to say the saying?
we have a great saying in the office. We have a great saying in the office.
That was said about 3 times last week.
Yeah. It's a super important one. And when we do our read-throughs, because we do various read-throughs at various different points where we either are adding information or removing information from the manuscript. And the rule is, that me and Emily have is, however you want to say it, you drown your darlings or you kill your babies or however you want to put it, but we typically refer to it as kill your babies. And it's like, no matter how much you love it, if it doesn't help with what we're trying to achieve, then it's not worth being in the book. Because at this point, we could waffle on and, I could write you an in-depth description of like a monetary system, for example. And that might be interesting to some people, but also to other people, it's less interesting. So giving you core information that is important so that it's easily digestible whilst giving you a massive conceptual image of how this works or what it looks like or things like that is what we're trying. That's the needle point we're trying to constantly thread. So the answer is, yeah, we're cutting stuff all the time. Yeah. Things that I love, and what we usually do is we cut them and we put them like in a separate folder so that if we ever want to come back to them or use them for another project or, anything like that, we have kind of like a dumping ground that is like, if we ever want to circle back to this, we have that piece of information, as well as also we now do something we learned, from doing these Kickstarters. We now do non-destructive editing. So once we have a draft, we will duplicate that draft, read through it in a new folder, edit it in a new folder, and work off of this one, leaving the draft behind, the earlier draft behind, so that we can always go back to it if need be.
Don't you, and I'm not sure how like formal this voting system is, but like when you, because as a co-writing team, there are elements of we're both fully aboard on this, and then other elements of I'm really excited about this, and the other person saying, I get it, but, so what is your like between the two of you mechanism for what makes it and what doesn't make it? Don't you have like a vetoing, you have something,
we have a
die
saying,
on that hill process or something like that?
Exactly. We have another saying between me and Emily that is like, as we're working together, it's like, typically we've learned that it's like, if you are not willing to die on the hill for that thing, then it's reasonably not worth fighting about it. So what it means is we literally just have those words because we don't need any more. There doesn't need to be an argument. There doesn't need to be a discussion. It's just, I really think this creature should do this. And the other person's like, I'm not sure. That doesn't feel as good. And it's like, look, I'm going to die on this hill. And they're like, okay, then it's in the book and we're going to go with your, we're not malicious with that in any way, shape, or form. You don't
overuse it either.
No, don't overuse it. Anything like that. And I have to admit, Emily is the sickest writing partner ever. She's so great. She's such a wide thinker who is, amazing at conceptual ideas and bringing stuff together. And she's so fantastic to work with. Me and her's relationship and ability to work together has been such a blessing. She's fantastic, and we do perfectly balance each other out. Everything that I'm missing, Emily is, and everything that she is missing, I am. And I think because of that, we've been able to really, like Tom said, find these mechanisms that mean that, we don't spend, 20 minutes arguing about something. We spend 20 minutes refining it and making it better. And that's exactly what we're aiming for every time. But yeah, dude, the cutting stuff hurts. Oh God, is it worth it? It's worth it.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, what is the bad day where you're like, well, for the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'm writing stat blocks, and as much as I want this project to come out, that kind of stuff.
Chris, do you have a secret camera in our workspace?
You talk about what a bad day for you is, and I'll talk about it. This is contextual as well. There's no bad days. We get to sit around a table of our best friends and talk shit, eat food together, work on projects we love. So realistically, there is no bad days.
Yeah.
But I think what's a day for you where you're like, fuck's sake?
So we'll separate this out into the creative side and then the other kind of business logistics, ops side. And I'll just kind of define mine around marketing. So the first thing, I'm just kind of a little bit weird about this in that I don't technically feel like I have bad days, but I slowly get worn down over a long period of just grinding day after day after day where I just need a way to get out. So I'm not sure if I shared with you, Chris, that Tracy, my wife, and I have this camper van.
Yeah, you talked about
I told you about it. Yeah. So for me, it's like I can keep my head down and just do a lot of the non-creative things pretty consistently and without much of a dip. Now it's none of it's like euphoric, right? It is just marching forward. And so my mechanism is to just kind of unplug from that on a weekend or even one night or something like that if I can. And then I'm good for another, 2-week sprint. It really is a sprint, like all day long. It's just kind of churning and trying to get as much marketing stuff in place, prepared for the next Kickstarter. That's kind of it. And so, the conversations that you have with us, with Ben, with me, with thinking about how we're going to promote things leading up to the holidays or leading up to the next Kickstarter, all that stuff is happening continuously across, scale, across a bunch of different partners now that we have and all of that. So as long as I can get a little bit of an unplug here and there, I don't really have a dip. But my game is completely different than the creative game, where you really need inspiration. You need to have, you need to have those new ideas, those things that get you really excited. That even if you didn't want to, you're going to stay up and write for the next 4 hours because you flippin' love what you're writing. That type of thing.
Yeah. So a great day for me is like what I guess we would call is like the brainstorm sessions. Like any chance where I get to stand up and walk around a room and talk with Emily across a room as she makes notes, because I just need to be walking around when I'm coming up with things. Anytime we get to do that and we get to like be like, okay, so this is how this works. Wait, but that doesn't work with that. How does this? Okay, that applies to that. That works. Oh yes, here we go. Now we're making it. Boom, I've nailed it. Like that process is the best for me.
That's just a process of discovery, isn't it?
Yeah,
like where something just appears out of nothing that you figured out.
Exactly. And then I think days that I struggle with more. But this is the thing. I'm my own worst enemy, Chris, because Emily is like our predominantly what we'll do is we'll brainstorm things together, and then Emily writes most of the lore for things that aren't mechanics-based stuff. So, in the Scorched Basin, a lot of the lore that's written about the tribes and like how they work and, all these kind of things is written by Emily. But then you'll see things like, their combat essentials and, it might be, like Astrid's trials or things like that are littered throughout the book that are more mechanics based, where I've written the lore for them as well as then like the mechanics below. But I'm like the main mechanics guy. So like when it comes to anything that is based on, like you're going to need a check here, or this is going to, GMs think about this, players, this is an option for you, or anything like that. That's my wheelhouse. Not by choice. Somehow it's like a sick obsession of mine that like I just can't get rid of. And like I want to not do mechanics. Like I really don't want to do mechanics. And I said to Emily, like we talked about this project, and I was like, I really want to go mechanics light. I was like, I want to go mechanics light. And now, I'm writing 5 or 6 wild player options, including a magic system. And then I'm also working on a system agnostic version of like Sky Zephyrs, to bring to the table so people can play it in any system. And I'm like, wow, that really got out of hand. And that's not then, stat blocks for creatures, NPCs, items, all the other little bits and bobs that, I'm kind of dipping in through. So those days, don't get me wrong, like they're grindier. So it's like Bodhi sit at a computer and like mull over not only how it would work, but then also how to put that into a language that someone's going to understand. And that mental process of like, here's my idea, here's the mechanics, how do I write that, is very taxing. So that's all it is that like after those days, I'm more tired than I am like after a day of, brainstorming, for example, or doing something, outside, or like being on business calls, liaising with an artist or liaising with our layout guy or whatever it might be. The days where I'm like actually like grinding away at mechanics and being like, okay, so this person has this weapon. How does it function? How do I limit it? How do I make it cool? Like what level is this person? Like kind of and all that kind of stuff is what I'm doing constantly. So, yeah, that's a sick day. Like, that's an awesome day irregardless. Do you know what I mean? That's a great day irregardless. So that would be my answer.
All right, so we've discussed bad days. Which is if you had to play one for a year, which of the 3 world settings do you think you would choose?
Oh, God. That's interesting. Well, here, the Scorched Basin has the most, like, room because it's just bigger. It's more expansive. There's way more stuff to explore. There's like political intrigue between 5 different groups of people. There's different levels of technology going on. There's different like, it's so much more complex. It's much more Game of Thrones like than, where the Wandering Tavern has, kind of a couple of core main things that are going on that, everything kind of weaves around those. And with this one, I would say the Scorched Basin has more to discover, more to like play out. Where the Wandering Tavern, I feel like, has so much. I feel like the Wandering Tavern is like a couple years worth of playtime. But then I feel like after a couple of years, you're like, we've explored these battle maps, every room. Like, I've gone in every freaking room. I've done every, little thing. For the Scorched Basin, it's like, one of the mechanics is the sand dunes in the Scorched Basin, because of the winds, are ever changing. So no 2 basin crossings are ever the same. And you might discover things that are revealed. So as the sands move, stuff from the time before the meteor is hidden beneath the sands. You'll find new things. You'll discover new stuff. So its replayability is gnarly. Like, it's super, super gnarly. So I would say Scorched Basin. But that's also because I'm biased because we're doing it at the moment. And I'm in love with it at the moment. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, it is until, like, I remember, like, the last
I know you're gonna say,
couple, like, let's say months of the Wandering Tavern, where, like, stuff needed to get done, right? We're reading through it now for the 4th time, editing it down again, looking at layout again. And, you know how this is, Chris, with, like, when you edit things and you have to go over it again and again and just make sure it's right. And that can take the joy out of it. It's almost like, I would think, you get a movie star that has had the experience of being on a movie set and it's been an amazing movie, right? They know that they've got something. They've captured something. You hit pause on that. Now it goes to the editors for 6 months. And then you have to come around and do promotion for it, after that. You've lost, like the whole, and then you see it a year and a half later on the screens and you get all the, the accolades.
That's
and
exactly what it's like.
Yeah. So
That's exactly what it's
delayed
like.
gratification on this. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's super strange. You're exactly right. That's a great description of what it feels like. There's definitely a point where it's like, if I see another scorched anything, I'm gonna kill someone. Like, it definitely gets to that point towards, like, the end of a project. But I think that's also because, like, we've just bled and sweat and cried into these projects for months and months and months in our, like, it's almost like watching the same TV show or, like, consuming the same bit of content 1,000 times, because throughout that whole time you're just re-going over things. Is that right? Did we do, like, does this need to be changed? And you're just going over and over and over it. So I think it's good. It's good that our team is, like, in the nicest way, that we're all just a bit autistic. And we're happy to get a little bit obsessed and go down the rabbit holes, you know.
But I see that in your work as well. Like, I can see in your edits, Chris, that, there's been a lot of thought put into not just, the actual core content, but you bring in these other elements that you're pulling in. You make it fun in different ways. You have different settings, all that stuff. So what's your kind of mechanism for keeping it fresh?
Oh, well, definitely I'm excited by when I've got a new mic or I've got a new camera and I'm thinking, right, how do I layer? You know how you layer projects? It's like I'll do all this, what we're seeing now, and then I'll think, right, and then as I'm saying this, I love recording my maps and my miniatures, and you know what? When you drop that B-roll on top, it brings it to life, and other people are like, where did you get those maps? Where did you? And that's like, yeah, no, that's how I feel if I was watching it. You know what I mean? And yeah, just
that's
getting
sick,
more cameras. You're just adding one more camera angle or something, and you're like, hey, that really improved it. So it's all effort upon effort upon effort, isn't it? And then there's things that you stop doing, and you just, I don't know. I guess you watch it back, and I end up hating every video that I've done, but I'm always really excited by the next one because okay, this time.
Yeah.
Dude, that's such a relatable and such a beautiful way to put it, Chris. I love what you just said, dude. That's like that whole thing of like, man, looking backwards and feeling that imposter syndrome, but then looking forwards and just being like, God, I can't wait to take off the next bite. Like, I don't know what it is. And that's a great way to describe it. I really, resonate with that for sure.
Yeah, the past is already done, isn't it? So I am waiting for, in this next Scorched Basin, new mechanics, right? For resources like water, fuel, or shelter, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
New classes, backgrounds. But is there more cooking?
Oh yeah, that is the most important question.
Great question. So there will be a bunch of mechanics for survival stuff in the basin. We've got a bunch of stuff for terrains and things like that. The cooking stuff is a great question. We have gone really hard, like really, really hard with our cooking this time. Tracy, my mother, Tom's wife, who is a professional chef, a world-class chef, is doubling the amount of...
I think it's tripling.
Is it tripling?
We had 10 in the Wandering Tower.
Yeah, we're doing... You're right. It is tripling.
30 recipes. But also, this is another bit that I won't share right now, but there's an element of your using these recipes that I don't think has been done in any other TTRPG, which is to just make it as easy as possible for you in a multimedia platform. Let's just leave it at that.
We're going to be including some stuff that means that if you're not a learner of reading, you as a visual learner, you might be able to learn how to do the recipes a little bit better. So we're working on some stuff with that. But the recipes as well. My favorite part about the recipes is Emily and Tracy worked for hours on lacing in the recipes with the correct vegetation and plants and things that are available to people, creatures and stuff that are available to people in the basin. And then culturally, what you would find with each tribe, or like it's lore specific food. It's like super specific in terms of like, it is almost exactly what we could imagine those people eating. And of course, we've already tried a great handful of stuff.
That's
already.
My favorite part of the recipes is we get taster days. Those are good days.
And so, dude, the recipes are going to be insane. They're going to be insane this time.
I'm going to make 2 videos on some of the puddings, what were the most easy but looked delightful at Christmas. So
awesome.
Love that.
Right. What am I ever going to get from you? A one-shot or several one-shots, do you think? You don't have to say it's planned, but is there any possibility you think that might one day be a thing?
Of in our books?
Yep. Just a book, maybe a book which covers, all your settings. I just want to be able to do DM guides on something that you've written because they're so different.
Okay, so by a one shot, do you mean a actual play video, or do you mean like a book that is all encompassing all together?
Write a one shot for people to run specifically, not like these are plot threads like you've done. Like, no, this is the story, and this is the next scene, and this is the next scene. And it's like this adventure takes place on the Sky Zephyr over here. This goes in the basin.
So like a book of those that then references the other books. So that's really interesting.
That's a great idea. Maybe we'll make a compendium of adventures to
one shots. Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Talk us through that, Chris. So
that's a great idea. I love that.
It's a taster book, isn't it? It's like, hey, I love that basin one, and then it's like, and you can explore further adventures in the Scorched Basin. So you go and buy the actual module. You're like, right, I've had my one shot.
I love it.
So, do you know what's interesting? A couple of different things. First of all, for the Scorched Basin, something that we will mention as well. We are working with some creators within the TTRPG space, some YouTube creators, who are writing what we are basically calling our creator packs. Now, these are going to be things that there's 5 creators, and currently, as far as we're aware, this is subject to change, but as we're doing it, people who back the Kickstarter will get to select either 1 or 2 of the creator packs for free and get extra content to come with their thing based on possibly one of the creators that they like more, or maybe they've seen their content and want to consume, some of their stuff. Within that, there are some modules or adventures or whatever you want to call them. Some of the creators are writing modules and adventures for the Scorch Basin. Others are writing lore, like other lore sections. Others are writing creatures and stuff. So there's a whole difference of not only are you getting that creator stuff, but you're also getting a completely different chunk of stuff with each creator that actually as well, you could get all the creator stuff, bring it together and have this whole other book almost of content to run for the Scorch Basin. But the answer to this is, I'll throw this out to you, Chris. This is super interesting within the TTRPG space, and I think I'm a minority in this situation. I actually have struggled in the past, specifically running Wizards of the Coast modules. For me as a GM, what I find really hard is I think it's because of the way I learn. Reading through a book doesn't put it in my head. I don't retain lore or things like that as well if I'm just reading through a module and things like that. For example, I could remember overarching stuff of why and one of the few modules I've run was the Lost Mines of Phandelver, the starter pack that they had. I could remember all the lore around the town of Phandelver because that's the part of stuff I can remember. But I could not remember and activate the stuff I needed to be doing in the dungeons that were provided to you in that module. Like the Cragmaw Castle and the caves.
It's good memory, dude. That was 4 or 5 years ago that we were in
there. Yeah. I remember those places, but I don't remember the stuff within them and the stuff that was, all that kind of stuff. So when I'm running them, I actually really struggle to do that just because I like to be more in the moment than I do beholden to anything I've written. Even if I plan stuff as a GM, I often don't look at my own notes. I often just am in the session and I use my notes to almost before the session. I'm cool, this is what I'm aiming to have happen. And I go from there. So what's interesting about that is I've never written an adventure for anyone. I've never written a actual adventure. So when we do that, it will be our first shot at writing an actual adventure for people. But it's just something that currently I've never tried to undertake.
But I think your point is really good, Chris, in that, oftentimes creators will write things or video things as their preference of how they would consume them, right?
Yeah.
And I think your point is that it's important to consider that, there's different consumption types out there, right?
Totally.
And some people would actually very, very much enjoy or really value or even at some points need that little bit extra boost or just a little bit more guidelines or guardrails of a one-shot that really kind of talks you through things. So I think that's really an interesting point.
I totally agree. We've been writing it in the style of how I would, as a GM, want to read a book, which is give me all the stuff I need to do it. Give me some plot hooks and then let's run with that. And know, almost more, because an adventure is the linked plot hooks in some ways, basically. It's just, a plot hook that leads you to another plot hook that leads you to another plot hook, realistically. So we've kind of done that, but we just made it, we presented it as, we kind of did that, but we presented it as, here's a spider web of options as opposed to a linear path to kind of follow, which, but it's, dude, I think the idea of writing a bunch of adventures across our various different settings as a compendium idea is super sick. I love that. I super, super love that.
We'll give you credit for that in the next one, Chris.
Yeah, my brain needs a path to then ignore, but it needs a path.
Interesting.
The Claw Mafia come down and land and fight with one of your factions before taking some crystals that they don't, they claim they can just take.
Yeah.
So there's a battle there. And that's it. That's all I need. Sometimes having all the ingredients doesn't make me look at it and say, yeah, it's a cake.
Yeah.
I'm no, I need a cake to then say, I'd do without the chocolate on top and take those orange pieces out. Do you know what I mean?
That's a great metaphor. fantastic metaphor, dude, and something that I know me and Em I will be bringing this up with them as soon as I see her tomorrow morning, because it's a great point. I love it. Yeah.
So you do say it's system agnostic, but then you have put 5e optional stats in. Is there a bit of a, oh look, 5e's popular, so we should at least put that in, or is there another reason?
It's exactly what you just said, dude.
It's a fine business move, I understand.
Yeah. It's exactly that. Currently, if you look at the TTRPG, if the TTRPG market space was a pie chart or something like that, and you looked at where the majority of our space play, what system they play, it's Dungeons and Dragons. Like, well, whether people like it or not, it is Dungeons and Dragons. That's what the majority of the TTRPG space play. Now, there's other contenders that are coming close to it, that are starting to fight back, and it'll be interesting to see in 10 years where Daggerheart's at, and where MCDM's system is at, and where DC20 is, where Tales of the Valiant are, all these big competitors. But yeah, dude, the answer is very much it's
Blackthorn where that is.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we're including, what we will be doing basically is, unlike the Wandering Tavern where we had the different colored blocks of text in the book, we're actually most likely going to be putting the book, basically creating 2 PDFs. And we will be doing the system agnostic as the hardcover, and then the 5e mechanics will just be in place where there would have been other mechanics. There's 5e mechanics. To be honest with you, though, there's also a percentage chance we might just scrap the 5e mechanics and just go with system agnostic, because system agnostic does apply to 5e anyway. But we might put playable with Dungeons and Dragons or something like that. But we're yet to go down that path. But currently, we're thinking 2 PDFs.
Have you had a chance to look at the 2024 stuff yet?
Yes.
Or
What are your thoughts? How do you feel?
Well, the only things that have changed are like weapon mastery, where each weapon does a certain special maneuver, push people over, give disadvantage, and then the conditions are a bit different, like exhaustion. So that, even though they're only small alterations, pretty much turns over a huge part of the game, because if you boil down the game, it's weapon attacks and conditions that you suffer from. So even though everything else you go, yeah, I know what a con save is, you don't need to tell me that again, or do you know what I mean? And spells, well, that's the problem, isn't it? The new book has old rules already, because they messed up by not putting all the text in the first print of books. So that if there's a spell and it doesn't say it's with concentration, but on D&D Beyond they've now put, oh, by the way, it's got concentration on that spell. That's like, well, the book and the actual digital version are worlds different. So there's already confusion. So I think it's in a bit of a bad state.
You know what? I'm starting to hear now more and more people that are actually playing it saying, there's some problems here. Like there's I saw something on Twitter. One of our good friends that has a real audience on Twitter has said, like, there are some issues with this that maybe weren't obvious when it was in playtesting and when people were just kind of doing one shots at Gen Con and that type of thing. Once you start getting into a campaign, really getting into it, and really starting to digest characters and different types of mechanics and feats and spells and all that stuff, they're finding a few little things that. So here's an example.
Are just they're enjoying pouring gasoline on themselves and setting themselves on fire. It's kind of crazy how wild.
Well, I think their intention is good. I think the follow through is first of all, it's complicated, right? So if you try to fix something, there is a knock-on effect that may break something else, or at least weaken something else. And I think that's what's happening right now. Is they've kind of overdone some things, and that overcompensation for some things has now had consequences with other things. And then those consequences, and then it starts loosening a lot of those things that were tighter in a different way. So I think people are experiencing that right now.
Yeah.
Everything's a bonus action now, so you get more to do. That's great. But what about my monsters? Are they going to get loads of bonus actions? We don't know yet. Which brings me to my bugbear. You've triggered me.
Uh-oh. Here we go. Let's go. Bring it out.
So, obviously, as a D&D YouTuber, when the bundle was announced, after 5 seconds, I thought, I'm having all the books, I'm having all the PDFs, so I can be first on the scene. And the new player's handbook came and went, and I was like, I've not had an email about it. Where is it? Everyone's saying they've got theirs.
Same.
And they still haven't contacted me about it. They sent me a free PDF, which I already had. And yeah, basically, I don't get my player's handbook until February, when the whole bundle will be released. That's what they're doing on Amazon. That's what they're doing on D&D Beyond. So they launched it in July? And if you bought all the lot, which makes sense, how are you going to send all the lot when it's not released yet?
Yeah.
So I've got to wait months for my PHB. So I went straight on Amazon and ordered it, and within 10 hours I had the PHB. So I've got 2, effectively.
So wait, we're talking about hardcover right now?
Yeah. Hardcover.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you a bugbear of mine. As we're on these. So I
love those creatures, by the way. Bugbears are great.
You were fortunate enough to get a PDF. We purchased it on D&D Beyond, and you have to be on D&D Beyond to read the flipping thing. You can't it'd be nice if they just said, you can, and it's on there and it's active and all that stuff.
Keep you on the site.
I know,
they're not going to give you the PDF download button. They're not going to do that. They're smarter than that.
$29.99 for a digital copy. I'd like to be able to take that copy where the flip I want to take it.
Put it on my iPad.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, this is the problem, and this is what we're trying to do. This is a huge part of Homie and the Dude that we like, that people don't know about, because we do, it's not that important to the outside world, but it's super important to us. Is, Wizards of the Coast at this point in time, when Hasbro took over, and they started making just god-awful decisions from that point onwards, with the OGL, with the player handbook, with Spelljammer, with using AI art, there's just freaking fuck up after fuck up, basically, just happening and happening and happening, and we're watching it cascade, and it's all in the name of making more money. So whether that's now there's D&D Lego, now there's D&D movie, now there's D&D animated, and they're trying to do all this shit. There's Baldur's Gate 3 that that actually, by the way, secret nod, they play tested all of the player handbook stuff in Baldur's Gate 3. Secret nod. It's just ludicrous what the path that they're going and the way that they're trying to, at the expense of quality, make money. And I think that pissed us off a long time ago. We've been over that for a while now. And I think what we've come to the conclusion of why we're here, what a chunk of what we do at Homie and the Dude is fight for the little guy. Is be the shit point, be the tip of the spear that allows the smaller folk to continue going forward in the same direction, competing with people like WotC. We're trying to prove that it's possible. And on top of that, with our creator deals that we do for marketing and, so on and so forth, all the various things that we do, basically, it's all in name of bringing the community up with us. We do not want to spend money at Meta with advertising. We don't. We actually do not do Facebook ads.
We actually did with Sky Zephyrs.
Yeah.
And that experience was so underwhelming that we're giving money to Mark Zuckerberg, and we really can't track how much of that is coming back or not. And at some point after Sky Zephyrs, we had a meeting. We just said, look, let's just reinvest it in the community. Let's find out. Let's create deals.
Let's put it back in the community.
Our entire marketing budget is back into the community. What I mean by the community is small creators in the community. That's our entire marketing budget.
And I think, dude, that's the thing that WotC lost. There was a long period of time, and I know that's the reason why, you see all the right-wing AD&D players going apeshit online all the time, is because they really felt looked after back in the day. They really felt like part of the company. And now we're so alienated. We're so off the beaten track. It takes people screaming on the internet for them to change anything. And even then, it takes the biggest wave of people screaming on the internet. It's just sad, dude. It's sad. And that's why, that's why we're system agnostic now. we're moving away from 5e. We're creating our vehicle system to be system agnostic. We're, pushing down roots. We're working on something in the background called Project Blackthorn that we can't say literally any more about. But,
except that's a really cool,
it's sick
project name.
It's a sick project and a reference to a book that we both love. But it's, it's time for other things to come into play. And I think we're seeing that across the board. You're starting to see, all these Morkborg systems blowing up at the moment. You're starting to see, you see the Stormlight RPG make $15 million, and it's like, okay, I understand why Hasbro is getting worried, but they're doing it to themselves. They're pushing us away at this point, and you're pushing us to people like the Stormlight RPG or Morkborg or Tales from the or any Delta Grid, any of the thousands of amazing systems that exist out there. Pathfinder, as someone that's a bit more comparable to D&D, It's ridiculous.
What's your take on it, Chris? Because you have to pick and choose as well. You have to say, okay, am I just straight 5e? Am I pivoting to 2024? Am I going to start exploring some of these other ones that seem to have some energy behind them? What are you looking at?
Well, okay, I am strongly for whatever D&D puts out. They've had all that history, whether you like them or not. They are kind of the best because they've had all that time to go where they are. Now, yes, I will always look at other modules like Cairn, Shadow Dark, and a new one from Instructor Boy, Vagabond, and I'm like, it's just D&D.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all the same conditions. It's all the same role initiative. I'm like, why are we pretending it's not just D&D, but you've twisted it? So whereas yours isn't like that, yours is, it's agnostic, and so if there's no rules with it, it's like, well, yeah, I get that, it's something different, but it's all these knockoffs. They're like, let's just not pretend we're playing some other game. It's not like playing Call of Cthulhu where it does feel different when you play it.
Totally.
So, people have jumped on the bandwagon, and I'm a big supporter of all new items. I'm on with Tales of the Valiant. And they have really, really tried to fix 5e. It's 5e, but like the Warlock's a full caster, and you're like, everyone's been saying that should be like that. And I don't know. We're all just trying to improve 5e, whereas I'm like, look, I think we all realise that 5e is as best as it's been. And we're all trying to create another 5e, which is obviously, you realise now, it's difficult.
Dude, I think the systems that are like 100, I think obviously there's systems outside of what are like to name one off the top of my head, like Orbital Blues or something like that are so vastly different. But I agree with you. Like I had a bad experience with Shadow Dark at Gen Con this year, but I do have their starter pack, and I have read through all their content. I've read it carefully, and it's just D&D. I've read Tales of the Valley, and I have a copy of their book on my shelf, the player handbook, and it's just D&D. It's funny. I agree. People have tried to make it better and try to improve on the things that WotC are maybe not wanting to do or whatever, for whatever reason they're not doing, which I think is interesting. But I think that's the point, is D&D will always own that space. Like, to me, it's like, why try and reinvent the wheel? Like, reinvent something or make something that is completely different and useful exactly. Make something that's different in a useful way that, fills another void. Like, for example, Tales, in my opinion, Tales from the Loop. I haven't played Kids on Bikes yet, which I very much want to, because I know Kids on Bikes is a very, similar concept idea. But Tales from the Loop for me is like one of the great, it's the only way I could ever play an 80s campaign, that's kind of Stranger Things inspired. It would be the only system I would use, because it's so fantastic and it's so different and so tailored to that experience that it's amazing. But I agree, in the space of, I guess, what we call like fantasy, like traditional, I guess, more traditional fantasy RPGs, D&D slaps everyone. That's why we have the 5e on the front of our books. Like, it's the reason we don't have Kobold Press Tales of the Valiant on the front of our books, is because, D&D literally just slaps everyone. And that's, whether you, like you said, whether you like them or not, they are going to sit at the top of the pyramid until someone brings a system that is better. Like, I mean, I've heard really good things about the Cypher system. I've never played it, but I've heard it's really diverse and you're able to do awesome things with that. I've heard the Fable system is also really interesting and diverse as well. But it's one of those things of like, the other thing as well is like I just said, the reason I put D&D in that kind of fantasy category is because D&D really doesn't allow you to genre jump either. That's the other thing. Like, you can do like, you know, sidestep like genre jumps of almost like, oh, you know, Van Richten's or, you know, things like that and go to horror, or you can go to like Astral Plane, which is kind of steampunk sci-fi-ish, you know, but, you know, they don't have, you have Star Wars 5e, which is your sci-fi supplement for it, but they don't have an option for that, where things like, for example, Cypher, I'm pretty sure you can play every, like, you know, whether it's steampunk, cyberpunk, you know, horror, you know, dungeon crawl, you know, standard fantasy. You can tick all the genres.
But here's the other side.
It's so interesting, dude. This whole conversation is wild. Like, it's so wild how layered all of this goes. Sorry, continue.
No, we know some creators that, you know, we're making some really nice inroads in D&D, and when the whole OGL system, that whole controversy happened, they jumped. They just said, you know what, I think probably for personal reasons, just on, you know, kind of
a moral standpoint.
On a moral standpoint, probably, you know, a position against corporations and what corporations do, that type of thing. They jumped. And I'm not sure if it's the case or not, but from my perspective, I think they've suffered from the jump. Now, just because the market is not big enough, it won't sustain them in a way that D&D will. And so it's really tricky, because you want to be able to be flexible, and you want to be able to be curious about different things. You want to be able to provide, you know, even a better option than what you experience when you play D&D. But you also want to be pragmatic about, you know, if we're going to do this next year, then we have to look at the, you know, kind of the business aspect of this as well. And until WotC completely, really, really
burns the house down.
Yeah, really makes, you know, just huge additional mistakes, then they're still going to be at the top of the cake for a while.
I was going to say, the OGL almost did it. There was like a moment where, like, if they had followed through with the OGL, that I think that would have burned it, and new systems would have flourished. But they recovered very nicely. Well, no, they recovered well, not nicely.
Well,
they recovered well.
You've got two copies of the hardcover. We've got a digital. We stood in line at Gen Con and then finally gave up because the line was going around this football stadium. I mean, it's you know, it is still the 900-pound gorilla, easily.
The anti-D&D lot have, like, moved out of the big city into 12 to 15 small settlements, all saying, come live in our settlement.
Literally.
Like, what, all those? I just hate town. You know what I mean?
If I want to get a burger, I can go right there to get a burger, right? I don't have to.
I know it's crap in town, but I hate yeah. Right, last question is a quick one. If you were to be dumped in the basin, in the basin, Scotch Basin, what 5 things would you have on you? You can only have 5 to survive, to live.
Oh, easy. That's easy.
Go for it, because I'm not. By the way, I haven't read it yet. So Bodhi and Emily have been toiling away.
You've been playtesting chunks of it, but you've only got what I've DM'd for you. You've only gotten the information.
We've done a lot of playtesting, so we get a little tiny, like a sliver of the book. But as far as that's now your expertise.
So I would want to start off with a hydro suit of any sorts, whether that is one that belongs to the Scarras, one that belongs to the Riders, or one that the Kai have possibly developed. I would want a hydro suit. So that I could survive without needing water for long periods
throw
of
something
time.
In there based on your languages? I would want Google Translate.
Yes, that's a great shout. That's such a great shout. Yeah, Google Translate. Yeah, okay, I'll take Google Translate as well. That's a great idea. So I would then probably want something to document things, so a notebook and stuff to document stuff as I go. Because there's a lot of, like, understanding how people work, and, you know, like, it's like anything. For example, you go to a new country, and it's like, how does the metro system here work? You gotta spend a bit of time. And if you don't write it down, then you've got to commit it to memory. It's that kind of vibe. So, I would write things down for sure. I would want a tent because, if there's any sort of sandstorm or anything like that passes, I would definitely want a tent to be able to quickly, shelter myself.
Anything about the magic system?
I would definitely carry crystal with me if I was able to get crystal, but I think the chances of me as a singular person without working with a tribe, I don't think I would get crystal by myself. So I would love to carry some of this power gem, some of this crystal around, with myself for whether that's to power a vehicle or to consume to give me magical powers or to help me grow vegetables or food. However I would wish to do that, I would probably want some of that.
Dude, what about a badass vehicle? Just a Mad Max vehicle.
That would be super sick. Yeah, a vehicle would be ideal. And then I would want, there's an item called the Machete Tendon Wonder, which is something that one of our factions have, and it's basically like an elastic band made from tendons that they use as like a multi-tool. So like it can be used to like, cinch two bits of a spear together so it stays together. It can be used to like wrap around something so you can pull it. It can be used to seal things. It can be pinged at an enemy as like as a distraction tool. So that, because I really love that. Like that kind of stuff. I like things that would actually allow me to survive, and probably some sort of like weapon so I could hunt things would be my final thing.
I think the point is though that like we are looking at fun, like fun items, fun features.
Oh yeah. Like if I could choose any weapon, I would take what I believe what did I call it? I think I called it a wailing flame spitter was what I just called it the other day. I just wrote this the other day. And it's a Mad Max style electric guitar that is also a flamethrower. So you can beat things with it, you can use concussive sound, or you can fucking hit them with a flamethrower. So that would be my weapon of choice. So that kind of thing.
Tom, you got any ideas how you'd survive in a desert? 5 options.
I'd have a phone number to a helicopter. Get me to flip out of there.
Ascending stone. That's fucking funny. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, that's good.
Well, did you see how my journalist skills tricked Bodhi into telling me loads of extra information?
I saw that.
Yeah.
I did see that.
That was very good. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure. And,
you too. Before we go, can I just say, you have been there from the beginning, Chris.
From Jump Street.
We noticed that, and we appreciate it, and we really, really value your friendship and your support. So thank you very much.
The time that you invest into supporting Homie and the Dude means more than we can ever express, dude. Like, it's the joy, not only just what you brought in terms of the energy of having us on the podcast, making videos about the Wandering Tavern, all that kind of stuff. Dude, the joy that you bring to us in the office when you release a video, about the Wandering Tavern, we get to watch a short, and we literally gather the whole team around to watch your short and enjoy it and have a good laugh.
Yeah.
It's super fun. Also, I have one final question for you, Chris.
Oh, yeah?
One final question for you.
Oh, yes.
I hope you'll allow us this.
Yes.
We have heard through the grapevine, through a bit of research, that you do some sort of ghost hunting, or you're work with the paranormal of some sorts. Can you explain that and give us like a little insight into that too?
I was basically I created my first ghost team when I was 5 or 6 in the school playground. With 2 other guys, boys. And then I was fascinated by it because I'd seen something in my bedroom as a kid. Mm-hmm. And then I was always fascinated by it until I was an adult. And then I went on a ghost hunt thinking, I'm going to disprove this. As much as I love ghosts, I'm going to go on a ghost hunt. And I couldn't disprove it. And from that point in 2011, I started my own team. 13 years later, I know from my own point of view that ghosts exist. I've seen unbelievable things happen, and we go on ghost hunts as often as we can, and all our lives have been changed by what we've witnessed.
Amazing.
That is so, dude. So I have so much that I need to know. So you go in, are you getting paid to like either like exercise ghosts, or is this like you guys are going to haunted locations and like finding them? Like, is it what's the parameters for like setting up a team day?
Our main thing is my Ouija board, which we made. And so basically we have a group who are just, it's all for free. And we get people saying, hey, we think we've got a ghost in our house. So we'll do the Ouija board, find out it's great Uncle Steve, and they're not to be scared, and prove to them that it's who they say they are, because ghosts can pretend to be family off information, and ask them to do some, prove themselves by doing something in the room, affecting equipment. I mean, throw something. Do you know what I mean? It's do the impossible, basically. So we've got all sorts of backup equipment, which you can put scorn on everything. Do you know what I mean? But you're physically there, feeling the drafts being prodded and pushed by unseen hands. You're like, well, come on. So, but the Ouija board is the information where you'll get something you think is nonsense in a location, because we just go where we can, where it allows us, basically, and we get asked by the public to go to their houses. So wherever we go, we use the Ouija board and get information that sometimes can be backed up, even though it sounded nonsense. Like we were a guy who fell down a hole, and we, what do you mean you fell down a hole? And then he was like, "This is my name. This is how old I am." And we went and researched afterwards, and the guy fell down a hole. That guy died, and it was like, whoa, that was intense. We didn't know that. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, so
go ahead and say your point. I've got an idea.
First of all, so sick, love it.
Yeah, me too.
So awesome that you're doing this. So I'm always been curious because I've seen other, I've seen a podcast recently where two guys were on the podcast and they were just like hanging out, not so much like there to talk about what they do, but they are ghost hunters in their spare time, or like ghost enthusiasts, I guess. They're not hunting the ghosts. And they were like, oh, we've discovered some stuff about like what happens after death and some things like that like we aren't at liberty to share with the public. Like, there's things that like they're like we will never share because it's just not. It's like it will cause like really bad things, basically. Have you experienced anything that is like, have you managed to speak to ghosts or gain any sort of understanding about their afterlife, their existence, and what might happen to you or I or Tom post all of this?
I'll tell you all about it. Right. So I had this thing. I was always skeptical. I was trying to disprove it. That's why I started the team. But as the years went by, I'd say we asked a question wrong one time, and firstly they identified that we all gave off a colour each, and that colour is like most likened to karate belts. And if you go through a big traumatic, life-changing thing, you give off a different colour. All spirits give off a red aura, right? And we don't really have a definition for what the other colours are. However, they all told us independently, because they'd say reincarnation is real, and we all come back 7 times, meaning we have 8 lives, and the reincarnations are in between. They spread over however long. So we do reincarnate, and basically I'll go to other haunted locations and say, look, what's your view on the afterlife? Do you agree that there are certain, life cycles? And they all agreed. They all pick the same number. And I'll say, what level are you on? And they'll say, oh, I'm on my 2nd time, but when they're dead, they know all their previous lives. But when they go in the body on Earth, you forget them.
You forget them.
So I'm apparently on my 6th life. So when I go back, I'll remember them all. And you can ask spirits they'll tell you about who you were and things like that. But they all agree reincarnation is real, basically. And that's how it works.
So how do you get chosen to be reincarnated? How's the, like...
You choose to go back, because this is like the heaven. Over there's normality. You choose to come here and go through the pain. It's like you learn something. If I come here and I'm a woman, I'll learn something. If I come and a man, if I come disabled, if I come and have a horrendous life, it's all a learning, and you ascend until you can become what they call beings of pure light, who are then those what we call guardian angels, who people say they see. Could be family members, but you can choose. I'm going to be a guardian angel now. I'm going to go down to Earth and watch over so and so. So that's kind of the ascension. But some people don't want to. Some spirits are like, oh no, I don't want to. I'm just going to stay here in the in between. But they come and watch over family all the time. And when we open a Ouija board, we glow with a light that we sort of use as our protection. It's like moths to a flame. So you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know if you're getting, a joker, or you don't know if you're getting someone genuinely trying to talk to you. So there is an element of danger, and I do push the team to try things they're not comfortable with, just in to see what the data points are that we get from that sort of thing. And sometimes you get your fingers burnt, but ultimately that's why we do it. We try these things out.
Do you know what's super interesting? Do you know what else has 7 reincarnations? That lines up perfectly with 2 religious ideologies that exist currently on the planet. Actually, it's 3. Hinduism, Buddhism, and Islam. Because in the Islamic faith, you go through the 7 stages of heaven, is what it's described as. In Buddhism, there's the 8 spokes of the wheel that you go through, which are the various reincarnations before you reach nirvana. And then in Hinduism, it's very similar. You have 7 or 8 reincarnations as well. So that's super interesting. It's weird. It's weird when you start looking at like weird upper echelon linking stuff of like, it's weird that a bunch of humans all believe the same thing, and then you have ghosts that are saying something else. It's like, and they all link. Like, that's weird,
How about this?
It is weird.
This is my idea, Chris. Bring it together. D&D with ghosts.
Oh my god! Playing D&D with ghosts is the sickest idea I've ever heard. That would be wild. That would be so crazy.
Kind of a joke, but kind of also intriguing to think about how you could even do that. But anyway, that was my wacky idea.
we
I love
are looking for other Ouija board users to be online with us so that we can see if we can pass a spirit through Ouija board to Ouija board. Because some followed us from York. We didn't know it was possible for them to just find us wherever we opened a Ouija board up. You sort of think in that building, that's where they stay. That one was an enemy of ours, but became a friend, luckily. It was more that we pissed him off. So we thought he was a bad guy, but he was like, no, he just came in my house and did a load of stuff that I want to do with.
Interesting.
So yeah, that's where we're at. Ouija boards.
Awesome.
Dude,
well,
when
I don't know if you make it down to Bristol or not, and if you need any, or if you ever take on any guests, hangers on, let us know. That would be cool.
Yeah, I'd definitely I'd be all over that. That'd be sick.
Yeah. All right, well, maybe we should look into something, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. That was a great combo.
It was good.
Thank you,
as
appreciate
always. Appreciate you, Chris.